Alright, it would appear that Q4 may have been even better than I thought. Despite me having cases that were so much higher than everyone else's, even I might have underestimated it too. The thing is, what I've learned with Tesla is to just follow the numbers. Keep emotion and opinion out of it. Even if the numbers are ridiculous and sound so unlikely, you can't underestimate this company. I'm not sure if other analysts are following the numbers so well, or if when they do follow numbers, they simply seem too big and have to round them down to make them more believable, and stick with numbers closer to the street. To be honest, I don't think anyone on Wall Street is going to the same efforts. They likely don't put in 60 to 80 hours a week studying and analysing this one company relentlessly. They have to analyse likely a dozen other stocks. And they may not even have any skin in the game either. Nor do they have tens of thousands of followers to help guide them and offer great feedback. YouTubers are a new paradigm of stock analyst. Anyway, in the past, Elon has said Shanghai will have a capacity of 1 million units a year. We're still seeing phase 3 being built out too. I know we get told all these amazing things, and we truly believe they can happen, yet they're still so impressive. They're also unbelievable. I know, contradictory, but you know what I mean. Like on Battery Day, absolutely astounding battery technology, just too good to be true. Yet next quarter, we're going to see Model Ys with 4680 structural battery packs. So we have these latest reports from Shanghai that supposedly we're seeing up to 2,000 Model 3s a day and over 1,600 Model Ys a day, coming from the YouTuber Jason Yang. For the record, my bull case for Q4, well, the most bullish part of that was getting to about 1,500 Model Ys a day. Now, this new run rate wasn't reported until just recently. If it is true, then yes, it's likely that it has been ramping up throughout November. But although this is our super bull case, I still want to keep it as realistic as I possibly can. So let's get calculating. We'll start by leaving the 3-month figures the same as our previous bull case. Personally, I do feel like the SNX might be over 20,000 deliveries though, but there may be some limitations there. And the one we really care about now is Shanghai. I'm going to break them into models produced for each month to help us work it out. We know October was 54,000 units, but the lines were down for 7 days. Going with the 800 Model 3s a day that we often hear, although it tends to usually be a little bit lower than that, we can work out our Model Y numbers. Now, it's really starting to sound likely Shanghai is hitting 1,600 Model Ys a day, which is what we have been hearing recently too, which is pretty much what I based my previous bull case on. So more validation of that is always good to hear. If we keep with our 800 Model 3s a day through November, up to perhaps the 27th, then from the 28th, this new run rate of 2,000 Model 3s for the rest of the month, i.e. the last 3 days of the month, then we get our November totals. Yes, I think if this was the case, then Model 3 has likely been ramping all month, like I said, but in reality, the rate at which this happened really doesn't matter in the big picture. What matters the most is whether they hit this rate or not. And this comes to 27,600 Model 3s and 48,000 Model Ys, and over 75,000 for the month. Then December, if we use 2,000 Model 3s and 1,600 Model Ys every day, we get 62,000 3s and 50,000 Ys, which gives us a total of just 241,000 for the quarter. Now, I haven't allowed for any downtime here or anything. On the other hand, I also haven't included the ramping. Remember, you don't just flick a switch and go from 800 a day to 2,000 a day. This is a process. Also, it's reported now that we have over 1,600 Ys a day, and I've just been using 1,600. Therefore, I'm going to round this down anyway to 230,000 just for a bit of breathing room. There is Christmas too, which may slow things slightly, although likely not as big a deal in China. So I'm happy to use this number as our China deliveries. Given this new run rate, I feel like this is conservative. Of course, we may not be able to validate this run rate until mid-January, when we get the December deliveries from China. In December, we get the November numbers, of which we expect we can validate the 1,600 Model Ys a day though. Look, to be honest, I'm still blown away by 1,600 Model Ys a day. Even if this turns out to be validated, and still only at 800 Model 3s a day, that is still outstanding. The fact we may have 2,000 Model 3s a day on top of that, then I think icing on top of the cake is an understatement. I think it's more like cake on top of cake, with ice cream and icing and a big fat cherry on the top. But we may still get some validation from the November numbers, as the Model 3 might have been ramping all month, so it could still be a lot higher than just 800 a day or so. Alright, so I'm going to scale these numbers down to a total of 230,000, but keeping the proportions the same, dividing them both by 1.05, We then get 103,000 Model 3s and 126,000 Model Ys. So let's plug them in. And wow, by sheer coincidence, these numbers come in at exactly 360,000, which, funnily enough, was the number I guessed in my last video. And as Q3 was 241,000, this is a 50% increase quarter over quarter, which is the equivalent of 400% growth year over year. Oh, but that's just how many cars Tesla have increased in production. There is also this little thing called economies of scale, which means the more cars you make, well, the profit increases exponentially. Anyway, we're basically at an increase in revenue here of almost $6 billion, which is a 50% increase. Hardly surprising, 50% more sales, 50% more revenue, totaling almost $18 billion in auto revenue. These models that have been ramping up in Shanghai are mainly the standard range LFP battery vehicles, which carry really good margins. But let's just keep with our original bull case margin of 31.5%, up 1% from Q3. That gives us an auto gross profit of $5.6 billion, up 53% due to higher margins. Including energy and services, we hit $19.5 billion, nearly $20 billion, not far off $80 billion revenue scaled annually. Total gross profit is still about $5.6 billion, as the other areas of Tesla are only about break even at best. I'm going to increase SG&A to $1.2 billion instead of $1.1 billion in our previous bull case, just to be on the safe side. Anyway, we come in at $3.3 billion net profit, 106% increase from Q3. Okay, that profit may not have been as higher than my previous bull case than you might have hoped, but bear in mind, that's because we're only really counting this Model 3 ramp up for December and ignoring most of the potential it might have had in November. What will be major is Q1 next quarter, especially with the new factories online. Alright, I can already hear the comments. You want to see what the financial will be for Q1, right? Let me know anyway. I'm still in the middle of researching the Chinese EVs too. Despite how unpopular that subject has been, I just can't stand false rhetoric and must debunk it. Oh, and then as for the stock price, what you all want to know, how rich will I be and when? Well, you'll still be worth the same amount in Tesla shares as before, unless you buy more. That is how I value my wealth, number of Tesla shares I own, not the dollar value. The more Tesla shares I have, the wealthier I am. But anyway, what happens to a company when you more than double their net profit from the previous quarter? Well, my guess is the PE ratio rises. Now, as you know, I'm not a fan of the trailing 12-month PE ratio, well, not for a growth company, and especially not for a growth company that doubles its profits quarter over quarter. Now, with these profits, we are at an annualized profit of $13.3 billion. If we assign a P ratio of 150, then we've just broken the $2 trillion valuation, which is about $2,000 stock price, and Tesla has become a multi-trillion-dollar company. Do you think a P ratio of 150 is high? Well, remember again, we're only counting Model 3 ramp for December. And what else was there? Oh yeah, right. 2 new gigantic factories opening too. Yeah, you're right. We need some insight into Q1. But even if Q4 earnings aren't quite this high and the PE ratio isn't quite this high, surely a $1,500 stock price is still possible around February. That isn't too far of a stretch. At least I hope not. I have some call options riding on this. Yeah, at this stage I believe I have exhausted my possibilities of being able to afford to build my position any further, as it will now be too hard for me to find the funds to exercise any more leaps. Unless perhaps more of you subscribe to my channel and join my Patreon. But yeah, instead I've just started trading again, and if you want to keep up to date in real time with my trades, then follow me on Twitter. I don't make many, my main tactic is patience. Just maybe 3 or so a year, when all the ducks are aligned and there is a potential for 5 to 10 times return in just a few months. Bear in mind, we did have Elon's email about reducing the cost of deliveries for the quarter, rather than just pushing them all out in a rush for the end of the year. But this affects the fundamentals in no way. It might just mean fewer deliveries. But as stockholders, we don't care about deliveries, we care about production numbers, as Tesla have no issues finding customers for these cars. Look, I'm really not trying to be some channel that builds your hopes up and sets you up for disappointment, which is why I have explained why and how I reached every single number along the way. This is not my opinion, this is me following numbers, and based on a rumour that you know as much about as me. If anything, I've downplayed the rumour. But if it turns out to be false, then please do not hold me accountable. It looks like it's possible, it correlates with the relative size of the Model Y factory, and Tesla continue to absolutely astound us. I just worked out what the financials might be if said rumour was true. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.